Hi, welcome to the first episode of The Clean Plate. I'm Sabine. I'm actually a personal chef, and with me today is my twin sister, Bethany, and she is a personal trainer. So I would say we grew up pretty healthy, right?
Absolutely.
We were athletes.
Minus ice cream every night, but that's okay.
But we worked it off.
We did.
So we grew up as athletes, so healthy eating was always kind of a part of our lifestyle. And I think when we went to college, it got harder.
Yes.
Especially with dorm food.
Yeah.
Not so
Less
good.
control, for sure.
A lot of less control. And if you wanted to eat healthy, it was salad.
Yeah.
So you get sick of that after a while. And so I started doing all the cooking. She did the cleaning. And I just was experimenting with lots of different ingredients to try to come up with healthy things that tasted good, that were filling and could fuel our bodies for the workouts. That
Taste is definitely important.
Yes. And the fuel. We needed to maintain a certain amount for what our workouts were. So I started doing a lot of the cooking, and then when I went to teaching out of college, I couldn't wait to get home and just work in the kitchen and chop vegetables. It was kind of like my therapy.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes,
like
I
I'd
do.
just get home and I'd have a big pot and I'd just be chopping vegetables, and because I didn't have to think about it. It was really all about making things taste good and trying to figure out ways to incorporate healthier things into some of the things that maybe weren't so healthy. So I decided after about 8 years of teaching to start a personal chef business, Sabine's Cuisine, and the focus was always healthy, but I think over the last couple of years, especially when you went through some dietary issues, right?
Yes, I have an autoimmune, and I went through some blood testing and found that I had some food sensitivities, so I went on an elimination diet, and at one point was limited to about 20 foods.
Which I thought it was less than that.
Yeah, well, it was minus sugar, alcohol, gluten, and dairy, so
the alcohol,
felt very limiting.
Sure. So, and that's where I've had a lot of clients come to me now recently with all these clean diets out there. They've got dairy
There's a lot of
issues,
allergies, food allergies.
tons of allergies. With teaching, kids couldn't bring in cupcakes.
Yes.
So now I've found that where my specialty lies is in taking recipes that have some of these allergens in them or food sensitivities, and finding tweaks for ingredients that I can substitute in or just take out of the recipe altogether that people wouldn't necessarily think of.
Right.
So I wanted to, on the Clean Plate, address that and help people to make good food that they can eat and enjoy and still have a clean lifestyle.
Because it is possible.
It is very possible.
Yes.
You live it,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, you've been living it for how many years?
3 or 4, I think, at this point.
At least. Yeah.
Slow down.
So I know, right? So I actually have a client that I'm working with right now that's going through an elimination diet, and I really think she's limited to, 10 to 12 foods. So
Yes.
what we're going to do today is we're actually going to clean up a classic meatloaf, and I created this recipe out of the few ingredients that she could actually eat, and I was thinking, what can I do with these? Meatloaf.
Perfect.
And I mean, who hasn't ever had meatloaf?
Yes.
Right? And it's a good comfort food, and we usually eat it with mashed potatoes, but today we're going to do something a little bit different, which we'll do after we do our meatloaf. I'm going to keep it beef because we don't want to strip everything away all at once.
Agreed.
You certainly could use turkey, you could use a ground beef mixture,
Yep.
but what we're going to focus on is keeping our beef, but we're going to do sunflower seeds instead of breadcrumbs. Sunflower seeds actually have a lot of essential fatty acids,
Right.
and they're really high in vitamin E, which is good for your skin and to build immunity. You can't say that about breadcrumbs.
And people with nut allergies, I believe, can have seeds?
Some can. And
they have
some
to
cannot.
double check?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, if gluten's okay for you, you could use a breadcrumb, but I would go whole wheat and go unseasoned. They add a lot of salt to the seasoned ones. So that's our major change that we're going to do. And then we're going to add in some flavor enhancers, and we're going to put some spinach. I put frozen spinach
Into everything.
into everything. It's your best bang for your buck, too.
Yeah.
You can buy a bag of the spinach, but it wilts down to nothing
It does.
of the fresh spinach. But frozen spinach, I always have in my freezer. You can take a handful out and throw it into sauces, anything. So I say we get started cooking.
All right.
You ready?
Let's do it.
So Bethany is going to start chopping up some celery. She's going to throw it in the food processor because I don't love celery. I think it's a texture thing for me, but I like the flavor. So when you put it in a food processor, it really gets it pretty minced. And if you have picky eaters out there, then you don't have to worry about them even noticing. Actually, the client that I created this recipe for had no
Children
idea I put celery in.
Oh,
No,
fantastic.
She didn't know, the adults. And so it's a good way to hide it. You certainly could put your onion in there. Any vegetables you're putting into the meatloaf, you could put in the food processor. But I'm going to start chopping up a leek. So this is a great way. Onions certainly add flavor, but leeks add a lot of good flavor as well. I just cut the bottom off, but I'm gonna keep that part intact. I'm gonna cut where the light green meets the dark, and then I'm gonna cut it straight down the middle. The problem with leeks is they're very gritty. So I'm gonna show you how we're going to wash the leek. All right, here we go. We're gonna head over, and we're just gonna peel apart the layers and go in between and let that water just rinse all the grit. Most of the grit's down at the base anyway. So you just want to really get it in there, and that's it.
Okay, so I've got the celery in here. Can I put the garlic in there too?
Yes, I would put the garlic in. I mean, you can go ahead and chop the garlic, but it makes your hands all stinky, and
It's
honestly,
time consuming.
it can be time consuming.
And
So,
how much do I want to just chop it to whatever consistency I would like?
yes, but if it
Okay.
were me, I'd go pretty fine.
Or if you're trying to
So
sneak it
our
into your
leek
pants.
is all washed. So now what I'm going to do is chop it. I'm going to cut straight down. Go ahead. It's all right. I just cut straight down, and then I'm just going to go ahead and slice it up here. I've got a pan heating up. I'm going to actually put a little oil in there. Get that all warm. And we're just going to, it's important when you do meatloaf to saute your vegetables before putting them in the meatloaf. I know it goes in the oven for 40, 50 minutes, but I still think it adds some flavor when you caramelize them in the pan. So throw them right in there. Awesome. You can just throw that right in the sink too. Oh, actually, no, you've got to do the sunflower seeds. Our magical sunflower seeds. I like the sunflower seeds in it too because it adds a little bit of a crunch, some texture, because meatloaf can kind of be a one-note texture. So that way, you get that texture, but it also adds a lot of flavor. I buy raw sunflower seeds. I found with the roasted ones, they roast them in various oils, so if you have an issue with cholesterol.
Yes. Well, and they add salt to them, I think, as well.
They oftentimes will add a lot of salt too. So you can control that by...
Now, say that's all I have in my pantry. Would it be okay to use them?
It. Yes,
Okay.
you could. And I've used them before too, but I do feel like they add a little bit different flavor. And I really like the raw sunflower seeds. So sometimes they can be hard to find, but they're out there. Sometimes in the bulk section,
Yes.
you'll find them. I'm also going to add our magical spinach to our pan.
And these I go pretty fine as well?
The sunflower seeds, you can go as fine as you
does
want.
depend on what
yeah,
you want.
I mean, I kind of like to have some chunks in there. I forgot I got to cut up our onion. And again, you could run the onion through the food processor if you really wanted to. Save you some time. And lots of supermarkets now have all this stuff pre-chopped for you. So that's totally up to you. Excellent.
That can be a big time saver.
Yeah, and honestly, that's the hardest part. I think about people that are on these kinds of dietary restrictions or decided to eat clean.
Yes.
Is the time piece.
It's definitely a huge time commitment, especially initially when you're trying to figure out what foods you can have and different recipes to try so that you can actually have food that tastes good.
Right.
But once you kind of get a system.
And you're a big Sunday food prepper.
I'm a huge Sunday food prepper. I spend most of my day.
Now, do you do your shopping and all the food prep on Sundays, or do you try to shop on Saturdays?
Sometimes I try to shop on Saturdays. I find shopping on Sundays, a lot of things are out anyway,
yes.
so I do try to go earlier if I can.
Yep.
But yes, I spend a good portion of my day doing food prep.
Yeah, but it saves you in the week.
It saves me huge in the week.
Yeah,
because
100%.
we have very long days, and by the time I get home at night,
Yeah.
the last thing I want to do is have to food prep.
Right, I hear ya. So I'm gonna put this into our bowl here. And if you could give that a good stir for me. Oh, right, we're
Then
gonna
I'm
put
gonna add my
some eggs in
eggs.
there. Eggs are a good binder. My kind of rule of thumb is 1 egg per pound of meat.
Oh, I was going to ask. I never know.
Well, in the sunflower seeds, I do about 1/2 cup per pound. I think traditionally breadcrumbs is usually a cup per pound of meat, but I'm gonna grab our meat over here. And I like to make mini meatloafs. Big meatloaves take forever to cook. So if you make them mini, then it's not so bad. And I like to portion them out too. Actually, you know what? You can keep that because we're going to use that. That's roughly a cup.
Okay.
So we're going to use that. All right, so we're going to stir this in, get this all mixed together. I like to add the meat last because I think a lot of times when you put the meat in first and then put all the stuff in, you really have to mix it too much, and meatloaf gets kind of tough.
Yep.
So we don't want tough meatloaf. Same with meatballs. I mix all of the filling that I'm putting into the meatballs first, and then I'll add the meat last. So I just mix it to a point where it's all kind of combined, and then form the meatloaf or the meatballs.
And back to the portioning into the mini meatloaves, one thing that I do like to do, like on a Sunday, is if I know I'm doing that for 2 of my meals that week, is I make a huge batch and then I freeze them.
Yeah. This recipe, which I'm going to post on my Facebook page and also my blog, The Clean Plate, it's for 2 pounds of meat. So you get about 6 or 7 meatloaves out of it, depending on your size. I do about roughly 1 cup. So again, depending on the size of your family, you could certainly freeze them, and I individually wrap them.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and then throw them in the Ziploc bag. So let's go ahead and get the meat in there. Are you ready to dig in?
I'm ready. Bring it on.
Bring it on. All right, so this is a grass-fed beef. It's a lean grass-fed beef. Sometimes it can be hard to find a lean. You see 85% a lot, but this one actually is a 92%. So it's a nice lean meat.
Do you find that the meatloaf's too dry, or do the vegetables
I think
help?
the vegetables, and it seems like a lot of vegetables, but I do think that they help keep the moisture in. If I do a ground turkey meatloaf, and if I use a 99% turkey, then I do sometimes add some chicken stock.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Actually, I never thought to do that.
Yeah, that gives it some flavor. I'll do the same for meatballs, just to give it a little. It gives it flavor and some moisture.
Yeah,
some
my
added
meatballs
moisture.
end up like so tough.
Yes, and again, some of that too might be from overmixing.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful of that.
I could do it.
Yes. All right, so she's going to work on that and get our little mini meatloaves put together. But instead of mashed potatoes, we've done this for the holidays before.
Yes, this is a nice change up.
Yes, and it's delicious. It's a roasted root vegetable, and then we're going to make a pine nut pesto to go with it.
Yes.
And the pine nut pesto can stay separate. So if you have someone with a nut allergy, you don't have to add it to the root vegetables. People can add it individually. But it's a nice addition to just serving roasted vegetables with olive oil, salt, and pepper, the pine nut pesto. So now what you're going to do is pack it in gently into the cup there, and then plunk it out. And I kind of form them into little mini meatballs. Mini meatloaves.
Okay, so
That
just
are
dump it
shaped,
down.
little mini meatloaves that are shaped like footballs.
Okay.
So I'll I'll squish it down, and then I kind of tuck it in like that.
Oh, cute.
Isn't that cute?
That's cute.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give my hands a rinse and get started on our root vegetables. So like I said, this is a really good dish if you're entertaining. So, but also, it's just a good weeknight to change it up from something like the mashed potato. And you certainly could mash all these vegetables together.
Oh, that's true.
Yep, you don't have to keep them
A
separate.
root vegetable mash.
Yes, so what is going into our root vegetables? Carrots. And then we're going to do a butternut squash, put a shallot in there, and then we're also gonna do a sweet potato. Butternut squash, I think, actually before I do the butternut squash, let me show the carrots. Because these, instead of cutting them in rounds, I like to cut them in kind of unique different shapes so that they look a little bit nicer if you're entertaining with it. So I just kind of do this on an angle and just kind of keep switching my knife. Can you see
Very
that?
fancy.
Isn't that so fancy? And it really is not taking me any extra time, but it's just that little extra added that I did that someone might take notice of.
Yes, they might.
All that effort you do.
Another foodie.
Yes, another foodie. Do you entertain a lot?
I don't, but I would like to.
Well, you have a new house
We
now.
just moved into a new house in July.
Yeah.
And so I
Plenty
would
of
love
space for
to-
entertaining.
Yes, and we have a great kitchen for entertaining. So hoping to do some entertaining.
That might mean you have to take a break from all your food prep, though.
Well, you're going to do my cooking for me.
One of the benefits of having a sister that's a personal chef, I suppose. Yeah. We actually did a fairly We do a lot of our family entertaining when we get together for holidays is healthy. We try to do some
We try
healthy
to
twists
make
on
it, some things we try to keep
Right.
traditionally unhealthy.
Well, there's certain things you just shouldn't mess with.
There are certain things.
And I actually kind of feel, I mean, I can make a good mashed potato without cream and butter. It's doable and very delicious.
Yes.
But when you're doing a holiday, sometimes
You
you
wanna
gotta
just
go
do
all
it.
out.
You
if
just gotta
there's-
do it.
If there's not a dietary issue. All right, so with the butternut squash, a lot of people struggle with peeling. You certainly can buy them pre-done. But I like to use a very sharp knife. I'm gonna cut both ends off. And then right where it starts to curve there, I'm gonna cut that piece off as well. And I like to work with flat edges. So I'm gonna stand this up and I'm just going to slice off the peel. I believe you used to use a peeler.
I probably still do use a peeler.
This is so much easier.
It does look easier.
It's way easier. And I'm gonna do the same thing actually with my sweet potato. There might be a teeny bit more waste, but we really are all about saving time here.
probably
So how
would
many
be.
did you get out of that? 7?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, I got 7. And I probably could have distributed a little bit better.
That's fine. But those are a good size, especially if you're doing portion control.
Yes.
This is a great way to do it. They're not going to take as long to cook.
So am I cooking them on this sheet?
Yes. So that's lined with parchment paper.
Okay, I usually use tin foil.
Yeah, so I started getting away from tin foil.
Okay.
Yeah. So and parchment, it's still pretty easy to clean up, and I think
And you
things
can cook
almost-
on parchment.
You can cook on parchment, and I think things actually brown a little bit better
Oh, that's not
on
a bad
parchment.
idea.
I don't know. It's just a thing that I've noticed. All right. So I'm just going to cut these into nice thick slices, and then I'm going to cut it into strips. Just be careful. They do slide on you a little bit. And these I'm just going to cut into nice cubes. You want everything roughly the same size so that it all cooks around the same time. You don't want anything too big or too small that's going to overcook. All right, so yeah, if you want to get that stuff cleaned up, that'll be good. You could certainly throw regular potato into this. You could throw parsnips into it for a little bit of flavor. I'm not a huge fan of parsnips.
I don't mind them.
Turnip.
And I feel like mixed into all that, you don't
Yeah, mixed
necessarily
into all
taste
this,
it.
yeah, you wouldn't be able to taste it. This is another great recipe to double,
Yes.
because what we have going here, a little secret,
Yes.
you can check it, make sure how they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
So under there are some vegetables that I already had prepared and roasted. And then if you have them left over, then you can just throw them in a pot with some chicken stock and make a soup. And I'll show you how to blend that into a soup after. To roast these, I'm just going to toss them with a little olive oil, salt, and pepper. And I am going to throw some sprigs of thyme. If you don't mind, once those meatloaves are in, could you grab the thyme out of the fridge, please? Just adds that a little extra flavor. If you don't like thyme, you could certainly do rosemary. You could leave an herb out and add some parsley at the end. I love fresh parsley.
Fresh parsley. Any fresh herbs.
They really add a lot of brightness to things, especially after the summer months when you miss all the fresh vegetables from the garden.
Yes.
It's nice to be able to add some freshness with the herbs. And they're always readily available.
So I'm just taking,
So that actually is going to be for your pesto. I just need a couple sprigs.
oh, you need a couple sprigs.
Just a couple sprigs.
Is that good enough?
That's good enough. All right. So a little olive oil, some salt. This is Himalayan pink sea salt.
I recently switched to the Himalayan
Yeah.
versus the sea salt.
I cook a lot with kosher salt,
Yes.
but kosher salt is actually stripped of all the minerals.
Correct.
So sometimes I'll still cook with it and then finish off with the Himalayan salts or some kind of a sea salt at the end. Fresh black pepper, you can't do it out of the container. It's gotta be fresh. Same with the garlic.
Yes, fresh garlic.
Fresh garlic, you can't do it out of the jar. All right, so we're just gonna toss these around a little bit. All right, so we're gonna get this stuff in the oven. We're gonna do 400 degrees for about 30 minutes or so, and then I'll check them.
Okay.
If you don't have a meat thermometer at home, I suggest investing in one because you want to definitely check the temperature of your meat.
Yes.
The meatloaves we're going to cook to 165
Okay.
internally.
How do you know, do you just find a reference for what temperature to cook your meat to?
Yeah, you can actually go online and just print off a guide. And a lot of times the meat thermometer.
Well, that's true.
Will
I
come
do.
with
Mine does tell me. I think that's why I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Well, if you don't have to think about it, remember it all the time, it's just easier to have a guide to look at it. So while those are in, let's go ahead and make the pine nut pesto. Yeah. This is good on the root vegetables, like I said, as a serving, as a side dish, or with the soup. Sometimes what I'll do is keep it separate if I'm going to make the soup anyway. Make the soup and then pass this around. The pesto as a dollop people can put on their soup.
Yes.
And stir it in.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And again, if there's a nut allergy, people either don't use it, or you could do this with sunflower seeds.
True.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
you
true.
could, instead of the pine nuts.
Yep.
And pine nuts can be expensive.
They can be.
They're really expensive. I make a lot of pesto in the summer, and I spend a small fortune, I think, on.
So now what if I get a couple of these guys in there? Is that okay?
Okay, so for thyme, basically all I do, this is pretty fresh, and it's kind of young, so it breaks a little bit. Sometimes it's a little more woody. But I just hold it right side up and use my fingernails to just kind of slide the leaves off.
Okay.
So we're looking for roughly a tablespoon. I'm not a big measurer. I know some people are, but
Not everyone has as keen of an eye.
no, it's not even an eye. It's more of a taste. So again, when this is done, we can taste it. And
That's
if
true.
you think you need to
I never
add
thought
more,
about it
you
that
can add
way.
more. So I always go less on the lesser amount first, and then
you can add.
You can always add more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is going in the food processor.
That's going to go in the food processor. So actually, before we do that, let me get this on.
Okay.
We are going to take your olive oil and the pine nuts and garlic. I'm going to get some garlic going. This is a bulb of garlic. I was working with someone that thought that this, the cloves, I had said that I needed 3 cloves of garlic, and she bought 3 bulbs.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of garlic.
It was a lot of garlic. Yeah.
Now, if a recipe calls, because sometimes the bulbs are huge and sometimes they're small.
Yeah.
So you just use your judgment again, just based on taste.
For the cloves, yeah, I love garlic.
So
So
you
if the
add-
recipe, if I'm looking at a recipe as a guide, if it says 2 cloves of garlic, I usually go 3 or 4.
Okay.
If they're huge, like if they're massive, I might
Yes.
just do the
Okay.
2 because they kind of equal the 3 or 4.
Well, because by the time you get to the bottom, to the end, they're tiny.
They're teeny. I love the outer ones when they're nice and big. I
Yes.
get annoyed with the little ones.
I know. I think I throw them away.
So with garlic, the easiest way to get the peel off, do you know this trick? You put your knife on flat and then just give it a tap, and you can hear that little crack. So that is your peel coming off. And then this, because it's all going in the food processor, you don't really have to mince it yet. We're just going to slice it. And I think I had said 1 clove of garlic, but I think we're going to go 2.
Go for it.
You never have enough garlic. So
And how long do you toast the pine nuts for?
you just want to get them till they're brown.
Okay.
Nuts can get burnt really quickly.
I think I've probably done that a few times.
I've done it more than a few times, especially making all that pesto. I've probably burnt many.
Yes.
This is the kind of thing you want to kind of stand by and check and
Pay attention to.
pay attention to.
Okay.
So we just want to kind of get them to a little brown part, and then we're going to add the thyme.
Into the pan.
Into the pan.
Okay.
Again, if you don't add it to the pan, it's not a huge deal. This is going to carry over heat into the food processor anyway.
Okay.
So why don't we get our cheese. Let's go ahead, throw the thyme in the bowl, the cheese. Let me see this one here. These sauteed up a little bit more. Oh, I love the smell of fresh garlic.
It does smell good.
So good. Although I really do think that I walk around and I smell like food all the time.
Yeah, you probably do.
Because I'm cooking all the time. People ask me if I get sick of cooking, and I don't. But you get sick of prepping. I hear you, and we have a lot of sisters, and it's hard.
Well, I think one of my struggles is my menu planning every week. Trying to come up with, I try to do 2 meals that last 2 nights apiece so I can at least get 4 nights out of my week done.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just trying to think of
what?
what we're going to be in the mood for
Hence
for the
the
week.
text at 8
Yes.
o'clock at night. What
Need
should I do?
ideas for lunch.
And I try to post that kind of stuff on my Facebook page so that
Yes, I do reference that
Yeah.
for some ideas.
because I know people struggle with that. It's that common question, what's for dinner?
Yes.
I don't know. But you can switch even this root vegetable. You can throw different root vegetables in it each time to make it a little bit different.
Right.
Don't do the butternut one time.
And I do like the change of the seasons because that gives me different ideas to go
ideas.
from,
Yeah.
from like the grilling over the summer more into the fall. I use my crock pot a lot.
We grill all winter, except last winter when the grill got
Yeah.
buried. That made it a little difficult to get to. But, all right. So these have toasted up nicely.
It smells so good. It does smell good.
All right, so what we're gonna do is add this into the mini food processor.
Okay.
And we're gonna add a little bit of olive oil to it because we're making a pesto. I kind of like the consistency of a thick mayonnaise.
Okay.
It's the best way I can describe it. So, again, your consistency might be different than my consistency. It's not a big deal. So
Okay.
I would do like kind of 3 swirls. If you really want to
1,
measure, it's probably about
2,
3 tablespoons.
3.
So you could certainly get your tablespoon out.
Oh, that does smell good.
Yeah. Wait till you try it on the vegetables.
Okay.
I'm gonna just peek at our. Looks good.
Now,
So-
how do I know if I need to add more? I
What-
feel like I need to add more.
Your feeling is right. Go with your instinct. Nobody goes with their instincts. If you follow the recipe and it still doesn't look right, then go with your instinct.
Okay. That is good to know because there are times I follow a recipe and I'm feeling like it's not going well.
Yeah, and if it's not going the way you want it, I really feel like the only way you can mess up when you cook is to really burn something.
That's true.
It's really hard to come back from that.
Yeah, she's very good at fixing things.
I am. Well,
Aside from if you burn it.
well, yeah, that can be tough. Yeah, let's check it out. I think you need more. It's pretty thick.
It is pretty thick.
Yeah, we'll just go in there. This doesn't pour out very fast. But yeah, I mean, you can always add stuff in, and if you put too much of something in, if you're making a sauce, you can always add more tomato or something like that.
So I could add more pine nuts if I had to.
Exactly, or Parmesan cheese. And that's the other thing I meant to mention, if you have a dairy issue.
Oh, right.
You could leave.
Is there an alternative, or do you
could
just
leave
omit
out.
it?
You could just leave it out. It basically would be a nut puree.
True. Couldn't really call it a pesto.
Right. All right, that looks good. So we're gonna go ahead and put that into our cup here. And we're gonna check the oven and see if our stuff is done. And we'll do a little tasting and then we'll check out our soup.
Okay,
Sound
perfect.
good? Awesome. All right, so our stuff is done. So if you want to take about half of that pine nut pesto, and we're going to mix it into our vegetables and get them in there. And then we've got our meatloaf, our mini meatloaves. And we're going to get these plated here.
They look and
They look
smell
so good.
delicious.
Yes. And I think too, some people might traditionally not, if they had company over, do meatloaf, because you do this big thing of meatloaf and you cut it into slices like it's
Yeah,
bread.
but this would definitely be great for a dinner party.
Yeah, and then you sprinkle some fresh herbs on top. Why
Yeah.
not? I think it's
With all the vegetables in there, they look great.
Yeah, that's the thing. They look festive. All right, so I'm gonna get us a couple plates.
Okay.
If you can go ahead and put it in that bowl. And do a little taste. Because honestly, that is the best part of my job.
Eating.
Yes, tasting all the food.
I love when she trials new recipes. I often get the call, do you want to come over and try this? Absolutely.
I know. Again, a benefit. One of the benefits.
Of course.
So we're going to take a meatloaf. Well, because my husband, God love him, he is not a critic of anything of mine. He's my best fan, so everything's good, everything's great. And I'm like, but I need feedback. I need to know if I need to fix something.
And now he gets to clean all the dishes.
Yes. That's what I love about cooking at home is he gets to clean all the dishes. So you can actually go ahead and scoop a little bit right on there. While you're doing that, I'm going to, did our little food processor end up, oh, is he under here?
Yes.
So if you're going to turn this into a puree or a soup, even a mash, if you're going to mash it, you could use this immersion blender. But before we do the soup, let's go ahead and try this.
Okay.
I'm going for the vegetable first.
Vegetables sound good. It does taste good.
The nuttiness, it totally needs more salt.
I would agree.
Yeah. But that's one of those things you kind of use salt as you go, and then at the end you use either a finishing salt or the Himalayan salt, or a sea salt would be a nice finish to that. And then our meatloaves, my new favorite. Clients, the crunch.
But it's very moist as well.
Right. I think too, the beef definitely helps. Even though
Yes.
it's a 92%, some people think to get the moist, they still have to go 85.
Yes.
But you don't.
You have a lot of grease with an 85 still.
You really do. Yeah. But this, no, it's still moist, and the crunch of the sunflower seeds, so good. All right, you can keep eating.
So can we take a break so I can eat?
All right. So what I'm going to do over here is take our soup. Let's see if our cord reaches. An immersion blender is definitely one of those tools that you want to have. You have.
So now, was this from some of the ones you cut earlier, you just put them in broth?
Yes.
Versus could you also, if I had some of this left over and I don't know what to do with it?
You 100%. That would be really good with the pineapple pesto in it.
Okay.
But if I'm not sure about a nut allergy, then I'll I'll put them in before I do the pineapple pesto.
But if I'm just doing it home?
Yeah, if you're just doing it at home, I actually recommend doing it with the pineapple pesto in it because it gives it that creaminess.
bit of flavor.
Because you're not adding any dairy to this
And then I just
whatsoever.
would put some chicken stock in there and then use my blender.
Yes. To keep it vegetarian, you could use veggie stock.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. While I'm blending this, there's actually a little thing of coconut milk in the fridge. So if people really feel like they have to have some kind of something creamy, especially if you can't use the pineapple pesto, you can certainly add coconut milk. All right, let's give this a minute. Way easier than if your recipe ever tells you to put something in a blender, don't do it.
This thing is so much easier.
Well, it's hot soup. You're trying to pour it into a blender, and it will the top will fly off if you're not careful. It's happened.
Yes.
Hence why I have my immersion blender. All right, so go ahead and add some coconut milk. Again, I'm not measuring.
Say, how much
know
do
you're
I
looking
add?
at the measuring cup. Just pour a little bit in. Perfect. And that's one of those you taste and adjust, and adjust. It doesn't add a ton of coconut flavor, but if you wanted it to, you could certainly add more. Some people don't like coconut, but that amount that you added, it's not going to taste like coconut at all. So, all right, we are coming to an end here. We're going to taste this molten lava soup.
Oh boy. And it looks a little
Let me
warm.
give a little salt. And the consistency, same thing. If you want it more like a bisque, a little thicker, you drain off some of the chicken stock or the vegetable stock, and then you can always add some back in if it's too thick. And it does thicken as it sits.
Okay.
So
I think that's the thing. I kind of get caught up in terms of what I think a soup or a stew should look like, and then if it doesn't come out that way, I think I've done it wrong.
right, but it doesn't have to be the way that you think because a restaurant does it that way.
Okay.
It's how you like it. So if you like it soupy, then do it soupy. If you like it thick, do it thick. Yeah. And that doesn't even have the pineapple pesto in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
that
So if we
is
did
good.
it with that, it would be really good. So
Fantastic.
all right. So we've cleaned up our classic meatloaf.
We cleaned it
and
up.
mashed potatoes.
Yes.
And I think, it's definitely still got a lot of flavor, a lot more nutritional value to it because we've added the spinach and the sunflower seeds here, even the pine nuts added some nutritional value to all those different kind of vegetables that we used into the root vegetables. All right, so hopefully you had some good takeaways from today. I'll be posting my recipes on my Facebook page, Sabine's Cuisine, Personal Chef Services, and I also will be posting them on my blog, The Clean Plate.
Oh, perfect.
And if there's ever an ingredient that you're not sure if you can leave out or want to add in, or if there's a recipe that you need help with, because she certainly takes advantage of texting me all the time, what can I do to this? And don't be afraid of a recipe if it has something in it that you can't have.
Right.
Most likely it can be taken out or there's a substitution for it. So looking forward to our next episode where we will be cleaning up another recipe to help people with their dietary restrictions and clean lifestyles. Thanks for tuning in.